Greetings and welcome to the Fudge Factory. Good morning to everyone. Today, our segment on In the Fudge Factory is Seeds to Roots. What does seeds to roots mean? Seeds to roots is the opposite of root cause analysis. So often, as educators, we look at what a student can't do because student can't read on grade level because previous school history. Student cannot advance in mathematics because of behavioral concerns. Instead, perhaps we should look at how we can enable students or enable an educational situation or enable a community by planting new seeds toward transformation. So, this morning's episode of the Fudge Factory is Roots to Seeds, and you know how we have to get started. We got to set the mood. Welcome back. You know, to truly transform schools or educational settings, perhaps we need to take a deeper dive into the communities in which the Black or Hispanic or even students identified as having a special need are coming from. Perhaps, particularly with this conversation, in the Black community, we need to really look at how we as a community begin to build capacity into our own communities. That's not to be separatist. That's not to promote one race over the other, but that is to say that there are definite issues that are within the Black community that perhaps the Black community should take more ownership in solving. And when I say that, I'm saying things like education. I'm saying things like the moral imperative to begin to police our young folks within the home before they step out and have to get policed within the streets. So this morning, I'd like to visit a conversation that I had with a very impressive gentleman that we've been pulling segments from his full interview with us, dealing with Black communities here in the Las Vegas Valley, Mr. Staples, Mr. Eugene Staples. And I posed a question to him during the interview, and that question was, what do Black folk need to do to be able to empower their own communities? So let me go to that interview and let's see if we're able to get some type of clarity to go deeper into this conversation. With that, I want to jump in and ask your opinion. When we talk about households, when we talk about communities, we understand how redlining works from urban community to urban community. So basically, you have these sections of town, wherever city you go to, that are basically made up of like folks. You have your Black section, your Hispanic section, you have your Jewish section in a lot of cities. In your opinion, what do Black folk need to do to be able to empower their own community?
Well, that's a great question, Dr. Killens. I say one thing off the top of my head is that, first of all, there has to be some type of internal mental emotional shift, right? It has to be the fact that it has to be something where we come to the place where we become future focused. And what I mean by that is we spend so much time looking back, being guilty about where we are, what's happened, or what someone has done to us, as opposed, and then that gets us stuck in our present, where we're not really able to dig out of this place to go to the next spot. And I think many Black families need to learn how to be more vulnerable, more transparent, and they need to realize that each of us has a gift, and if we could bring what we have to the table, it'll make a difference. So, we think about if you think about a barbecue or a potluck or something like that, everybody that comes to that potluck, they normally bring something, right? Somebody might not have meat at home, but you might have beans, and you bring those beans or corn or whatever. I think it could be the same with our communities. If we bring to the table that which we have, we can help one another move forward. But I believe part of that is we have to have a target, and that's I believe that's a big part of the issue with the Black community. I believe that what we've done is we've become the target, or we target others, and so as opposed to targeting a solid goal. And so if we could do that, and matter of fact, that means that sometimes if we had a target and we were the arrow or the bow or whatever, the bow to project our children forward, project our communities forward, that means that sometimes we might have to go backwards. And then going backwards, that right there can help us, but that means that we have to pause. And I think too often we want it now. We live in this microwave society. We live in this place where we just want to have everything available at our access right away. And so I think that's a big problem with the Black community because we've been so indoctrinated with the mirage of what society says we should have and how we should be. And then we've also allowed ourselves to be divided. And so there, at some point, the Black community has to come together so that we can empower each other.
Well said. And I will continue to contend that the way to empower each other is through education. And I'll throw this in there. It may also be through educational options. You know, I know a lot of people, particularly in the Black communities that I have served in the South, are not keen on educational options. For example, independent charter schools or private schools. I've heard I've heard individuals say when I talk about those type of options that it is just another way to segregate. However, if you look at the demographic makeup of particular school districts throughout the South, throughout the Midwest, you find that within particular communities, the Black communities, the schools and the districts are literally Black schools. And in many instances, they're not serving the needs of Black students to the extent that they are seeing statistically significant achievement gains. So we need to look at how we can use education as a lever within communities that are in great need, particularly the Black community. So, those of you that are out there that have strong thoughts on public versus independent public, which is a charter school and what charter schools are, and private schools. I believe that there needs to be an ecosystem of all of them, but controlled by people in the Black and brown communities. Now, my experience with school choice in the Midwest, there are some wonderful schools that have awesome school themes for teaching in innovative ways. However, what you'll find is there are black administrators, there are black leaders, but the people who own and operate those particular charters, the people who manage those particular charters, don't necessarily look like the people that are being served. So it is something that we need to dive deeper into in different parts of the country to address this gross discrepancy between black students and their highest achieving peers. And again, if we're going to build up communities, we have to build up the educational impact that is within our communities. I'd like to visit another very strong interview segment dealing with this topic. And I would like you all to pay particular attention to what this gentleman is about to say. I think he has some very strong points about what we need to do to police
Ask
in
you is
our environment.
what, Dr. Smith, in your professional opinion, is the central theme for moving black people to empower their own communities?
That's a great question. And I love how you talk about seeds to roots. And I'm a big believer that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, because if you look in times of antiquity, you'll see that those seeds were already planted. You look at the great strength between our ancestors and what they did, specifically coming out of the Reclamation period when they were given, I want to say, a chance at emancipation. And when the oppressors saw exactly what could be done, they were afraid, because they saw, wow, these people are educating themselves. Wow, these people are building strong businesses. Wow, these people have everything that it takes. And that's why you saw the different vacancy laws that Michelle Alexander talks about in the new Jim Crow, things to be able to put people down, to be able to create slavery in a new name. And then it got to a different point where you still had a certain sect of people that were surviving. And then that's when Plessy versus Ferguson came in as it relates to Jim Crow, separate but unequal. And the reason why I bring all those up is because you said, what is it? We already had what it took. Because during that period of enslavement, we were the creators of everything. So we already knew what it was. We just did not get the financial profits for it. We didn't get any other credit for the inventions and things of that nature. So it was already within it. So when we got that imitation or that ounce of emancipation, and people started to see exactly, wow, look at what they're doing. And we can go no further than, one of the more famous ones people talk about now is Tulsa, Oklahoma, with Black Wall Street. And that was even after Jim Crow. So this is like 1921. So now what we're looking at is communities that had everything except for one thing. So what did we knew? We knew we had to have the banks, because we had to be able to create loans for ourselves to be able to build our own businesses. We had the agriculture in line. We knew we had to be able to feed ourselves. We had our school system in line, and we know our school system was in line because we had individuals who were already running for political offices and winning those offices. And that's what scared a lot of the colonizers and oppressors. But the one thing in which we failed to do was to have a strong enough military, because what did we do? We failed for the okie doke, believing that we were fully citizens and that the United States Army would do it. But after Abraham Lincoln died, President Andrew taught us, when he removed the soldiers from the Union from the South, he let that know it was going to be open season. You may be free, but you will never have regular citizenship. You will always be reduced to an underclass, to a second class citizenship. So you said, what are the pillars that we need to do? We already have it. It's a matter of how do we get back to it? How do we get back to staying away from the consumption, the greed, the materialism that MLK warned us about, falling into the American dream, and go back to that spirit of community? So it goes back into one, having a love of self. And that love of self comes with the knowledge of self, understanding who we are, what we're built for. Then the second part comes from that education. As Carter G. Woodson famously said, it, the miseducation of the Negro. So we need to re-educate ourselves on exactly what we need to do, where we need to be. How do we love each other? We've always said this, and we said this to no end. If we could get, not even because Black people are not a homogeneous group of people, but if we could get that 66%, within that bell curve, that X plus one minus part,
Yes,
what if we
sir.
put all that money together collectively? What could we do? It makes no sense that here in America that we don't have a little Africa, we don't have a little El Kubalan, we don't have a little Ethiopia. You know why? because there's no reason why we shouldn't have our own beautiful hospital, our own beautiful grocery stores, our own beautiful hotels. And I'm talking about the type that make people envious, the type that people want to come in, those type of 5-star rating things that come. And that's because we've been miseducated. We've been led to believe that we can't work with each other. We've been led to believe that the system at large, the American system, will invite us in, and that it's great to still to be to assimilate inside of it. But once we are re-educated and we have that self-love, we have to learn from the past again, and we have to have a strong military system to be able to protect ourselves. And it's almost like when you look in some of the old philosophies, we don't want to create any issues, but what we do want to do is to be ready if somebody wants to infringe upon our right to have our own.
And the only way, in my opinion, to get there, to really achieve the things that Dr. Kwaku Smith was referring to, in my opinion, is to get there through education. And you heard him mention that intently throughout the interview. So what we've got to do is dig deeper into alternatives that will save our students within the schools and really look at how those alternatives can be nurtured, support, or developed within the home so that within the communities into the schools, we have a different type of thinking. What's going on now, each day, every day, throughout the country, within our communities, to our communities, is horrific. But until we take it a step further from conversation to actually planting new seeds that will give root to new things that build the community. We don't have enough black or brown doctors. We don't have enough black or brown engineers and teachers. But by God, there's a lot of black and brown prisoners. There's a lot of black and brown folks who have had the wind taken from within their spirit. So within our communities, I would submit this morning, let's go out and do something. Let's brainstorm a way within our own particular communities on how we can plant seeds that give root to productive energy. This is my way of doing it. And hopefully you see what we've been trying to do since we started this channel. So, as everyone has to do, if you're finding something in the morning times from these live conversations, or if you're digging through the gallery, which hopefully you're doing, and finding some wonderful segments from these interviews that can really help you throughout your day and your educational journey, please hit the like button and subscribe. Have a blessed rest of the day. And tomorrow, we're going to talk about actual interventions. So join us for the Underground Railroad segment of the Fudge Factory. Have a blessed day.